Hello and welcome back to the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast with me, your host Ryan, the founder of Rocket SaaS. And today we have a world first for the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast. We have not one but two guests in the studio. We have our regular guest, Jamie Skeels. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
And we have Joe McLaughlin. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Joe has recently joined Rocket SaaS. How long have you been here? 3 months, something like that?
4 months now, yeah.
Yeah, Joe was the first ever Rocket SaaS employee. I think we've got near about 50 employees now. Joe was the first ever employee to get offered the job in the pub. Do you remember, for some reason, I decided that I had to try and sweeten the deal, just in case the salary wasn't enough. I told you that I'd throw in a Chinese. So that's happening today. So yeah, sorry it's taken so long to get that Chinese.
Really worked then.
You must be starving.
Got to go through a probation period before the Chinese is unlocked.
Well, we're recording on a Friday, so beer and Chinese. But anyway, the episode is not about beer and Chinese. The episode today is about sales and marketing misalignment and how you can bring that alignment, because that's what we're seeing so much in so many B2B SaaS companies. You've got the sales team or salesperson that's just hammering the phone, hammering the cold emails. The marketing are over there doing their thing. But really, as everyone should know, sales and marketing coming together is how you really unlock massive growth. And that's what we've really focused on for the last sort of couple of quarters here at Rocket SaaS, is how can we get sales and marketing aligning, and we're starting to see incredible results from it. So we want to talk about what we're doing in-house in terms of we've got a lot of clever tech behind it. So we're going to talk you through just like the problem, the overview of what we're doing, and then we're going to get into the kind of technicalities of the tools that we're bringing in to solve this. So we're going to do this as a 2-part episode. Episode 1 that you're listening to now is going to be more of an overview. And then episode 2, we're going to get deep into the technical tools and how we're going to do it. And we thought we'd bring Joe onto the pod because Joe joined Rocket SaaS about sort of 2-3 months ago. Joe's a very talented all-round marketer, but you really brought a lot of technical expertise in terms of your understanding of new tools that we haven't used before in the business. And when I hire people, I love it when they come and they bring new ideas, new tools, new technologies, new frameworks, philosophies that we've not just tried before as an agency. And you've certainly brought that in, and you kind of spearheaded this campaign that we're talking about today. So thought we'd get you on. So yeah, welcome.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Being dubbed Clayman.
Clayman. That was a fancy dress costume there. But yeah, so the main problem, I think I've already introduced it, is sales and marketing misalignment. So typically, a salesperson will have a list from Apollo, Cognism, Zoom Info, and they'll just be dialing 100 different phone numbers a day, trying to, boil the ocean in terms of the audience that's there, trying to get some leads in. And as cold outbound is getting harder and harder and harder every single year. I'm sure most of you that are listening and watching this are aware of that. It's a massive problem. People are not picking up the phone as much anymore. People are ignoring cold emails more and more than ever. So how do you save the sales team, and how do you get the sales team actually getting results? And the way that we're framing it today is calling it ABM Lite, I think is what we're calling it, right?
Yep.
So meaning, as a high level, is that the sales team are reaching out to people that are already showing some kind of intent that they may want to work with you. So Jamie, I've done my best at giving an intro there. Maybe you could perhaps expand on that a little bit of what is the problem and what's the overview of how you can solve this problem as a business.
Yeah, definitely. So I think for Rocket SaaS, we've got to a stage where, and we were speaking about it on the last pod, where our kind of general marketing motion and kind of our inbound engine is working really well. And so we typically get a lot of our leads come to you through our strategy call offer. They come inbound via the website. People that have been following along with our content, and they sort of come to us in their own time. You've obviously talked about demand generation a lot on the podcast. That's been kind of the focus. It's working really well. But I think for us, one of the things that we've noticed is that there's a big gap between kind of what we're doing on the marketing side, and we recently kind of just brought in someone on the sales side, Michael, who's brilliant on the phones, great salesman, a big resource for us in the agency. But I think he joined would have been kind of in the summer sort of time.
Yeah, about 5-6 months ago.
Yeah. And so what we kind of like looked at was like everything's working really well on the inbound side, but what we're not kind of doing is bringing together a lot what we're doing on the marketing side with what Michael's doing, and kind of arming him to basically allocate his resources as effectively as possible on the people we think are best served to be speaking to Michael day in, day out. And also, like, when we look at our campaigns, again, we do take the philosophy, we want to reach people where they are in their buying journey and let them come to us in their own time. But in saying that, there's a lot of like signals from our campaigns, from our website, from everything we're doing on the marketing side before they kind of come inbound and submit a form that we could be actioning. So things like people engaging with our ads, people who are going to the website, people who are like signing up to watch our content. Like, there's stuff that we can do on the outbound side to bring those together and either kind of get Michael building relationships with those people, following up those people in other channels, or trying to convert those people depending on what actions they've taken. And we kind of spotted that as a big opportunity for the agency broadly. And I think this comes back to the problem you were talking about a moment ago that you see in a lot of SaaS companies. Marketing and sales kind of do their own thing. Marketing kind of runs campaigns and sales kind of just has its own list of calls or emails, and they kind of work in parallel but not together. So I think this is our kind of effort to show how a smaller company with leaner resources can try and bring these things together in what we've called ABM Lite, because the kind of solution to this problem that's often pitched is ABM, but we've spoken about it on a previous pod. For a lot of startups, ABM in the sense of like big complex ABM programs isn't possible. So this is what we would kind of, when we're trying to kind of build this out ourselves and kind of show people like through our content, like how we're building it and the examples, like how you can build something that targets the accounts most engaged with you, and bring sales into that motion so we can get both the campaigns and sales working together. And that's why we've kind of brought Joe in, because Joe's done a lot of this in previous roles. And I think Joe's got like a lot of experience in kind of building the setup behind it. And that's kind of why we wanted to bring Joe on the pod today as well.
Yeah, so I can explain it as a high level, then Joe can get into more the technical side of things. But so this only really works, the whole thing that we're kind of talking about is if your business creates a lot of content. So a lot of businesses that are bad, that don't create much marketing activity, like marketing content, is the salesperson is just calling a random list of people. The next sort of step is that a lot of businesses have tried and it just doesn't really work, is, for example, a gated ebook. So you'll create an ebook, you'll gate it, someone will fill out the form to download the ebook, and some companies even force a phone number to be added to the form. You have to enter your phone number in order to download this ebook, and then the salesperson calls them. Or maybe you'll do some webinars and the salesperson will call all the people that have attended the webinar, and that does give the salesperson a bit of extra fuel. Probably not the gated ebook thing, but the webinar has actually worked for RocketSaaS in the past. So we've done webinars, we've had like hundreds of people register for the webinar, and then Michael gives them a courtesy call afterwards, and that does actually work as like a single play, because people have come onto the webinar, they've attended it, it's lasted an hour, they feel they kind of know the brand a bit more. So, but that's just like one thing. And what we're talking about today is, imagine if you could just like scale that up like tenfold. Every single LinkedIn ad that people click on, every blog that people read, every time they come onto the website, if they listen to the podcast, if they sign up to the newsletter, if they look at the founder's brand on personal brand on LinkedIn. Imagine if the salesperson could now be kind of going after all of those people because they've got that kind of brand awareness side of things. Have I described that right, Joe? And could you describe how the kind of technology world has changed over the last few years, that you can now actually use tech to start to detect people that are going on that journey, and how like sales can then go after them?
Yeah, completely right. And I guess the main thing we're trying to work on here is, like you said, cold calling's really hard. People don't have the time of the day, they don't be picking up the phone. All you're really trying to do is just have more meaningful conversations. That's what good SDRs doing. They're just picking up the phone and actually talking to people. It's not always going to lead to a meeting booked, but they're just learning more about them, ready for the next time. They can interact with them better and just forming that relationship. That's what's really working right now. And so it's just, how do you actually make it so that when the rep picks up the phone, they're more likely to have heard of us? Mm-hmm. Speaking to Michael when he first started, and again, we were starting from quite a basic position as well. What we've got now is a big step forwards. But when you pick up a call, Ed, in the first 10 seconds, you're trying to explain everything your company does. It's a really hard pitch. If they've already heard of Ryan through LinkedIn posts, like the webinar, oh yeah, we've heard of you. Really like what you're putting out there, some interesting stuff. And the conversation just goes on from there. Might be wrong timing, but at least they know you've got a conversation, you've got a route in now. The issue is, it says, is there's not many ways that people just go like, yeah, I'm really interested. It might be webinar forms is one thing we collect. If they come and say, actually, we want to speak to you inbound, that's a really good sign. But it's how do we amplify that more? And that's where these new tech, there's tools like Clay, all the ones we'll go into, is it able to pick up a lot more signals of what people are doing. So even though they might not be expressly going out to you and saying, I want a conversation, they're showing that they're more interested in the sort of topics that you're talking about. So you can naturally take that and start talking to them more about that in a more tailored way. And so instead of Michael just picking up the phone, randomly spraying it, you go, okay, these people are interacting with this. They've shown these signals here. I can now put together a much more crafted conversation that's going to really apply to them and just get that conversation going.
Right. So in terms of, well, the first thing I'm going to say is that, yeah, it's a completely like seismic shift for any salesperson. The difference between calling somebody and them going, who are you? What brand? Rocket SaaS? Who? What? Rocket who? Who are you? Or the difference, they pick up the phone and go, oh yeah, you're from Rocket SaaS. Yeah, I know who you are. I've seen you all over my LinkedIn. I signed up to one of your webinars. You're founder, that guy called Ryan, right? Yeah, I like his content. Yeah, that's the difference between, the two different kind of ways people can pick up the phone. I think, Joe, you were saying to me that when you started doing a lot of this stuff at your previous company, Cognism, it was like a 4-fold increase in the sales rate success, something like that.
So we had a lot of data with a big outbound team. Obviously, Cognism's content engine was incredible. And it's the same thing. We knew that once they reached a certain level of engagement, the likelihoods that they would be a first call booking, so rep picks up the phone, instantly progress at the next stage, increased at least 4-fold. And when you showed that data to the sales reps, and suddenly they're wanting to call the people who are highly engaged, there's how do you make the system around that?
Right, they were fighting to get that list. I bet they were. Yeah, but that is it. I mean, and that's, that's completely logical. As I said earlier, cold calling is just horrible. When you cold call someone, they go, oh yeah, I know who you are. The person on the phone is just open to having that conversation. And then the other thing you said earlier is, being able to get more data in terms of what the user is doing and what their behavior is, what their engagements are. So again, conversely to just calling someone up and just going through the same old pitch, it's like, okay, I know this person has visited these pages on our website. I know that they clicked on the use cases or maybe like the industries page, and they clicked on the, HR page. They didn't click on any other industry pages. So therefore they're probably interested in our HR solutions. And they also clicked on a case study of a HR brand that, we worked with. So therefore, they're clearly interested in that particular industry. They also read this blog. So the salesperson knows that I can, you can talk about that particular topic that was in the blog. So suddenly the conversation just get a lot more targeted rather than just firing into the same pitch that's just, been said constantly. Is that because that can be done now with tech, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, you could get a really extensive tech stack and pick up all of these signals. It's just about how made you one, testing out new ones, and just trying to actually get something that works for you. Like you mentioned, where you're finding out what people are doing exactly on the website, that can be hard to do sometimes, but there's much simpler plays as well to get that running. So if we look at like a bigger picture, because Ryan, you've been so consistent with your messaging and talk about demand generation for the past couple of years, we know that people who are engaging with your content are probably engaged that wider topic. And that's a good starting point. Even that, just being able to have a rep who knows what the big issues are, what people are interested in. And then if you can get more data on top of that, great. And you can just keep stacking that and making it more and more relevant. Obviously, you want to invest that sort of money on companies which you're really interested in. But that's just how you start forming campaigns around this. And, it could be as simple as this quarter we're sprinting this particular topic. And then that means that even without any fancy tech, your team know that you've just been talking about this for the past month and people are really engaged. So you can put 2 and 2 together and think they're probably engaged in this topic.
Yeah, nice. So this whole thing just backs up my philosophy about marketing. It's not really my philosophy, but it's the fact that you have to create a lot of if you create a lot of high quality content and you pump it out with ads just consistently, not just doing like, oh, webinar here and I will do a blog when we've got the time, just having a content engine that is just constantly pumping out things like podcasts and blogs and webinars and newsletters and guides and all of those things, and it's backed up by ads hitting exactly your right target audience. You've got a really good website with lots of different pages and topics that people can dive into. That's the fundamentals of marketing that I always talk about. And then you start layering on, the clever sales intent, ABM Lite, and the whole thing just flies. You can't, all the stuff we're talking about today, you can't really just get a salesperson doing any of this stuff we're talking about today if you don't have the fundamentals of all that, like really great content and targeting backed up. So it just, I describe this as like just sprinkling on some kind of magic dust of the fundamentals of getting it all right. And this particular thing can be incredibly powerful just to really ramp up the lead gen side of things. So Joe, talk us through kind of how you kind of got this process started at Rocket SaaS we'll get into the deep technical stuff in episode 2, but yeah, talk us through like the starting point. Where do you need to start when you're creating this kind of sales marketing alignment ABM like function?
Yeah, so I think what you just said is really good, that this is all based on marketing fundamentals. We're going to mention a cool tech stack we're using and all these signals, but it is just really good marketing, which is being elevated with this tech stack. When we first came in, we started with quite a basic exercise of just doing our CRM analysis and understanding exactly who we can sell to, where our best fit is, and then using these tools, we're able to start doing what we're calling building known world. Really, it's just building a TAM, but it's quite a nice phrase to be using because it sort of resonates better with an audience. And what we were doing was we used a tool called Clay, but you can use plenty of different tools here. And we got to a stage where we just wanted to map out as best as we possibly could. These are all the potential companies that show some form of good fit. They're not our absolute best fit because that list would be too small, but if they came inbound, we would be wanting to work with them. And that gives you a really good list because most companies start way too narrow. They try to do the ABM piece before actually doing the fundamental marketing, the demand generation, whatever you want to call it, of just consistently getting out, putting good content in front of this list of companies that you think are a pretty good fit for you and you could work with. And so that's the first thing we want to do, is get that in place. And we've seen some really good results just from fine tuning that audience and the inbounds that are coming from that. But what it really showed to us is when we started focusing more on accounts we know seem to be a good fit, once you start doing that, you really know we get much more signals in terms of these are the accounts that we're working on. This is how they're responding to everything. So then we started playing around with the idea of, okay, Michael, let's try focus on the ones which are a little bit warmer, see how they respond. If they're engaging with our ads, so they're going to recognize us. And there's very quickly some signals that, yes, he's having much better conversations. One example was when we're trying to get people for the breakfast event. Whenever we gave them a list of contacts who were aware of us, they're naturally going to want to do something like that. It makes perfect sense because they know who we are. They want to be involved with us a bit more. It's a good offer. So that whole thing went, this will work. We just need to build a process around it. And obviously we'll go into the next chapter with much more details around it. But what we're doing is essentially we've got this list. We're targeting this very big group of companies. Not going to be able to hit all of them at the same time. Only 5% of them are really going to be a market. So it's how do we then use outbound to be really hyper-targeted on the ones that we think are most likely to be coming a market now, look like really good fit for us. So we're using Clay, we're using tools like Send ABM, syncing all that into HubSpot. But basically all we've started doing is just going, look for different signals, look for hiring, look for fundraising, look for really high LinkedIn engagement, sending that data to Michael in the place that he's already working in HubSpot. So it just means that his day-to-day life is now working contacts which are most likely to be heard of, instead of having to try filter through all of these data sources. So that's what we've been building.
Nice. So yeah, I know tools like Clay and there's various other tools that can tell you those really amazing signals. Like if a company's raised funding, that should be an intent signal for most brands. You also mentioned hiring. So at Rocket SaaS, we're obviously a marketing agency. So if somebody is looking to hire a new marketing exec or marketing manager, it means they want to invest in marketing. So that's a good signal for us. I'd say that pretty much any SaaS brand, if you're a cybersecurity SaaS, and someone's put a job out for a new kind of, I don't know, IT manager, CTO, head of IT, risk manager, that sort of thing. It means they're probably investing in growing that department. Therefore, they could be interested in new technology. To give the example of HR, if people are putting a job out looking for a new HR manager, that HR manager may want to come in and bring new tech. So those are clear signals. So a lot of people are familiar with those signals already, and tools like Clay can give you that. So that's like one thing. But so you kind of like identify that group of companies. But then if you can layer on, those companies that are hiring and have raised funding are also engaging with our LinkedIn ads, and they're also coming on these pages of our website. They're also engaging with the founder. They're also signed up to the newsletter. That's just building up, like layering on this like intent basically. And the salesperson needs to be made aware of that, because without like this clever tech that we're going to get into, the only time that traditionally a salesperson is aware of intent is when they fill out the form to either, obviously book a demo or like sign up to a webinar, something like that. So now with this sort of technological advancement that we're going to get into, there's the ability to go kind of beyond just the form fills. Is that pretty much right?
Yeah, exactly right. I think they said this all needs to be baked in what's been going on already. We'd ran through the maths in a previous webinar, but we always stick to this rough 95-5 rule, or 5% of your market's ready to buy. Layering on another stat on top of that, about 85% of companies have already made their decision. They know who they're going with because they've got that brand recognition in place. So they go into market and they're going to go with the big guys. So that means that you're fighting if you only take that approach, you've got 1% of the market that you could probably sell to. So that's why we need to start with the brand building. So you're already sort of top of mind. And then all of these signals that you said, stacking on top of engagement and being aware of your companies, that's where you're actually seeing results. Because if you just start with these signals, you're fighting for too small a pool.
Yeah, I think that's why we've used the term ABM Lite internally as well. Because like we've mentioned on a previous episode of the pod, like when we think about ABM in the traditional sense and the way a lot of people talk about it in our space, people think about like a very restrictive number of accounts that we're going to go after that we know are kind of our best fit accounts. For a lean organization like us, it would be very difficult for us to place our bets on those based on some of the metrics and heuristics that Joe was just mentioning. Like if we're hunting after like 500 accounts, but only kind of like 1 to 5% of those are available or even remotely winnable, and we're relying on kind of like a few bits of text try and determine which ones they are, it's a very risky way for us to approach. So we'd much rather increase our surface area and then narrow it down so we've still got the benefits of reach.
Yeah. Great. So I think we can pretty much wrap it up there. That's like the overview of the problem of sales marketing misalignment and the exciting new technology that can come in to really help sales just have so much more success because they're being backed up with that marketing data and that intent data and that kind of ABM Lite play. I think hopefully in this episode you've learned how you kind of broadly go around solving that topic. Your sales team or salesperson are absolutely going to love this. So I would recommend that you give this episode to your salesperson, and particularly episode 2, because that is where we're going to get into the technicalities of specifically how you do this. So Joe and Jamie have already hinted at Clay and Zen ABM, and I also want to talk about tools like Albacross. I think that comes into it, right? And then how you can feed that data into a tool like HubSpot, how your SDR can get informed and actually when to make the call, when is the right time, or the cold outbound message. Also, in the next episode, we're going to be talking about different offers that the SDR should be doing. It shouldn't all just be the same cold pitch as we've already kind of talked about today. How can you use that intent data to actually change the message that the cold caller, the cold emailer is actually using in order to get more engagement and more demos booked, essentially. So we're going to get into that in the next episode. We are off for a Chinese. We will be back for the next episode of the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast. See you there.